impressive.
Great. I think we are now live. I'm going to give it a few seconds just to make sure everything is set, everything is rolling. Fingers crossed. It's all working. Technique Forum, all looking good. If you are in the YouTube chat, say a little hello from everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Welcome to the very first Technique Forum with the Stay at Home Choir. This is a session I've been particularly excited about since our first conversations with this, and I am joined with a small panel of singers from the Stay at Home Choir who are going to be joining in this afternoon. Thank you everybody that's joined. We're going to be spending today working with Veronica Veysey Campbell, who I will introduce in a second, mostly on the Benedictus and the final chorale. So if you do have a chance to go grab your music, please do so. Make sure you're ready to have a bit of a warm-up, a bit of a sing. Today is one of those geeky sessions, so we can really delve into a bit of vocal technique, really begin to understand things. So make sure you've got a pen and paper, take those notes, and be ready to ask any questions in the chat. We do have some questions that lots of you have voted on already on the Facebook page, those of you that are members there. So without further ado, it falls to me to introduce the rather wonderful Veronica Veysey Campbell. Veronica is amongst her enormous number of achievements as a fantastic singer, she was also an incredible pedagogue who I've known for a few years now through the National Youth Choir mostly, but she holds some wonderful positions, not least of which being professor at the Royal... Oh, and this is, of course, where I forget, it is the Royal College of Music, isn't it? It is, good. Yep. I'm glad I remember that. So Veronica is a fabulous voice teacher, and she really knows her stuff. In fact, I've only 6 months ago bought her latest book of sheet music for young voices. So she really does know her stuff, and I have enjoyed every moment I've worked with her. Please do take as much as you possibly can on board in this session. These are going to be some hopefully very valuable nuggets of wisdom. I really hope you enjoy it. Veronica, please introduce yourself.
Hello. Well, this is a big thrill for me. What a learning curve we've all been on over the last few months. So, yes, quite an introduction, so I hope I live up to it. Very strangely, the first thing I do when I see people in front of me is to see if I know anybody, which is probably a little bit ridiculous because you may be in many different countries. But yes, Jamie said I'm a vocal professor at the Royal College of Music, which is a big thrill. And I also have a private studio here in London, where I'm based, where I teach a whole variety of singers, professional singers, soloists, opera singers, singers from groups like the 16, Tallis Scholars, Monteverdi Choir, as well as some amateur singers, and I spent 15 years with the St Paul's Cathedral Choir teaching the choristers there, and have loved also working with National Youth Choirs of Great Britain. So just a big thrill to work with all types of singer and ages of singer as well. So I'm delighted to be here. Now, Jamie's asked me to start off with a bit of a warm-up. I can only hear out of one ear, but I'm sure we'll be fine. So, point of warming up. I hope, well, I know Jamie and Tori will have explained about the need to warm up, but we're vocal athletes, and we need to treat ourselves as athletes and get the whole body and mind ready for the task in hand. I mean, if you think of yourself like a tennis player or something, then you would obviously very naturally think about how you prepare for your singing. And some of us are doing extraordinary things, sitting in front of computer screens all day, and that can really get the alignment and really sort of mess us up. So first thing I would say is some stretching, particularly if you've been sitting at computer screens. So the other proviso is you need to make sure, particularly when you're working in groups, that you're listening to your own body. And if I'm saying something, do this, and you know you've got a frozen shoulder and you cannot do it, please don't do it. The idea is to help you and help your singing, not cause problems. Neither do I want everybody to give 100% of themselves, because that way, particularly when you're working with somebody you've not encountered before, you know, so everyone's sort of eager to please and do their best. But actually, we need to listen to our bodies and do a little bit of what I'm suggesting. And again, when I give a masterclass, I try to remember to say at the beginning of the masterclass to whoever I'm working with, if this is useful for you, that's great, and I'm delighted. If it feels not useful, please feel free to discard it or forget it. And if you have a different way of working, then of course you can ask Jamie if you have contact with him in another session. But main thing is to work with our bodies. We don't want to fight them. So let's just see if we can do some shoulder rolls, just very, very gently. And I like sort of slightly slow movements. Again, it's very easy, particularly if you've rushed to get here after being working hard. You might think you need to just whiz through the exercises, but just check. Notice where we're carrying the tension. You know, I think most of us, what I've discovered through lockdown, every single singer, no matter how free they have been in the one-to-one sessions with me when we were able to, you know, remember those days when we were face-to-face, and we'll get back there before too long. But everybody has got different tensions, even if they seem really calm and, you know, I can cope with this. Yes, of course, we're fine. The tension tends to go to the back of the neck, sometimes to the larynx, sometimes to the tongue when they're singing. Sometimes one's holding tension there. So just sort of notice. Stretches like this with the fingers interlinked, shoulders down, fingers interlinked together, and then arms stretched out that way. That's a good one to do. I like this one, arms up above your head, and then perhaps arms gently down. So there's any number of things like that you can do. If you have a chance to get some physical exercise before you start singing, maybe go for a lovely walk, or I don't know, jump on the spot, anything like that's good. Jaws and tongues tend to get very tight, so we're all going to do some chewing. As if you have the most revolting table manners. Great. So the slower and more revolting, the better. Because our jaws and tongues tend to sort of work, if we're not careful, they work together like a unit. And then it makes the singing more difficult. So what we're looking at is everything we can do to set you up so that your singing is as free as it can be, and then it will be expressive. So we're going to do a few tongue stretches, if you can. Now, again, some people have tongue ties. I think in every NYC, say 80 people, perhaps 2 people would have a tongue tie. And that's when the little frenulum under the tongue is attached from the floor of the mouth towards the tip of the tongue, and it just impedes your mobility. So if you're feeling a tug under the tongue, just be careful. But let's do some tongue stretches. So tongue out as far as you can go, and then glide in. You're going to do it, and I'm going to talk. And then tongue out again. I'm not stupid. And then one more, tongue out as far as you can. If you can stick the tip of the tongue up to the ceiling, then that's brilliant. And down towards the floor. And then from one side to the other. And then coming forwards again. And see if you can draw 3 circles anti-clockwise, very slowly, without licking your lips, with the tongue actually out of the mouth. Yeah, well done. Great, Audrey, that's great. And then the other way, 3 the other way. Brilliant. And then a little bit more chewing. And then we might add a little bit of sound. So would you like to sort of just glide through your range comfortably? So the main thing, name of the game, is keep it comfortable, because we're just warming up here. And then you can gradually take it a little bit higher, but it's not supposed to be loud, just very, very gentle. That's great. A little bit more. Lovely. I have a great exercise, which was shown me by a wonderful physiotherapist, Ed Blake, who sees a lot of singers and gets a lot of singers out of jams, where everybody sort of tightens up. It's very strange. You know, the tennis players again, everybody expects that they have physiotherapies and go for regular physio or osteopathic sessions. With singers, it's a little bit the same, particularly the people who are working very hard and, sort of doing concert after concert, often go for maintenance checkups with a regular osteopath or a physio who won't just be working with the shoulders, but will be working very specifically with the muscles, the extrinsic muscles of the larynx and the facial muscles. So there is this rather strange exercise which is very good for releasing jaw and tongue. If you can put the tip of your tongue behind your top teeth like that, and it's going to stay there for the whole of the exercise, okay? And you don't make any sound in this exercise at all. It's a totally silent one. It's just a rather nice stretch. And again, if there's any discomfort or you can't do it, then please just stop and watch. It's absolutely fine. So we're just going to open the mouth halfway and close. Keep the tip of the tongue behind the top teeth and then open wider, as wide as you can comfortably go with the tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, and very slowly close again. Fantastic. And halfway, and then waggle the jaw from side to side. We're going to do it twice more. It's a really good one for releasing any tension around the temporomandibular joint and around the jaw and the tongue. Let's do this again. Tip of the tongue behind the top teeth. Halfway, close, fully open, close, halfway, waggle the jaw. And one last time. You're very, very good at this. I'm very impressed. Once more. Tip of the tongue behind the top teeth. Halfway, close, very gently open wider, and close, halfway, and then waggle the jaw from side to side. Now, sadly, I can't find out from each person in front of me how you're feeling, but I hope there's a release there. Oh, good, I see a thumb up. Yeah.
Well, you know what? At this stage, I can probably say, if give us a little wave and unmute yourself. What's that feeling like? I certainly feel like that's, even as a professional singer, I don't give myself enough time to take an exercise like that slowly. Who's noticed anything? Elizabeth, what's your kind of observations with that? Oh, you'll need to. There we go.
Yeah, I just feel a real warmth all the way around here, and I've been very tense, so. It really glows. It feels like a glowing feeling.
Okay. So Elizabeth, take it gently, because that might be a bit of a shock to the system. So don't overdo it. If it feels nice tomorrow, then yeah, maybe I'll do it again. But if it's feeling tighter, or then just go very gently. I suspect what you're feeling is good, but we just need to be thoroughly sure.
It feels good.
Good, great. Yeah, everybody has a tight jaw at the moment. And sometimes, and it's one of the things that really messes with our singing, sort of almost more than anything. If you've got a tight jaw, you're going to have a tight tongue. And no matter what you're trying to do with your breathing and your sport and airflow, it's as if there's a little hook that's unhooked you from your body and your voice from your body. So it's almost as if you're cut off here. So we want to do what we can to have a nice, light, gentle jaw. So if you notice you wake up in the morning with a tight jaw, then just beginning to think, sort of what sort of exercises can you do? And that one is a good one. And just sort of having a big old yawn and opening really wide. And this one can be a noisy one. Great. So we can do a few of those. We never sing on a yawn, but there's a pre-yawn we might talk about. So Jamie, if you want, we can get onto that.
Absolutely.
So let us get warmed up. So we're now going to use a bit of airflow. So breathing, I'm going to stand up here. So breathing and alignment have to go together. So if you want to join me standing up, you can't really effectively have one without the other. Now, I've spent many hours talking to singers about how to stand, and it can take a good 5 minutes to set somebody up. But there's a great mate of mine, a wonderful Australian speech therapist and singer and speech therapist, I said, singer and voice researcher, called Ron Morris. And he has a brilliant way that just goes straight into brilliant alignment. and I was talking to him just earlier today, because the other thing I forgot was Aberystwyth Music Fest, which we have a little course online, and Ron Morris is going to be doing vocal pedagogy. It's sold out, but if anybody wants a link, you just Google abermusicfest.org. So his way of getting a super speedy, brilliant alignment is to imagine you're a kangaroo. And if you just shut your eyes a moment, it works. Hang with me for a moment. Just close your eyes. Imagine you're a kangaroo. You have a kangaroo tail coming from the base of your spine down to the floor. So it's big, it's strong, it's muscly. Now you can open your eyes. And maybe somebody would like to unmute and just tell me what they've noticed. Anybody?
I feel a bit more grounded.
Yeah, it does that, doesn't it? The other thing that it does immediately, and again, if you're doing a lot of work to a computer screen, you might find you're leaning forwards. And of course, all my Royal College lessons are by computer at the moment, usually Zoom. And the kangaroo tail just makes you not lean forwards. It also makes you release your knees, because you think kangaroo, you're going to be bouncing. It's all right, I'm not going to get you bouncing around, but it just keeps you nice and free. So the base of the spine will be released. We'll be standing upright rather than leaning forwards, and certainly not leaning backwards. So that's a good one. And shoulders, I know you'll know this, but if you take your shoulders up to your ears and just let them drop, then they will be in the right place. We're just going to do a little bit of low breathing. Different teachers teach in very different ways. Even some of my closest singer mates, we might have exactly the same singing belief systems, but sometimes express it in a slightly different way. So again, with this, just take it if it's helpful for you. So if you put a thumb on your navel and a hand just below. Most of us don't like to have a hand on our tummies, but actually it's quite useful for this, because as we're breathing out, we're going to be thinking about the airflow rather than breathing in. Again, instinct, particularly if we're worked up, nervous, worried, is to try and take a big breath, but actually that's going to tighten us. And instead, if we breathe out first, your turn. And then my turn. Your turn, just an SH. My turn. Your turn. Great. And what we're aiming for, and again, if you have a very different way of working, then this might be something you choose to discard, but I find it does work for everybody I've shown it to, is as you're breathing out, the tummy wants to do a little journey inwards towards your spine. Just very, very gently, very slowly. It's almost as if your tummy muscles are going to be the accelerator on the car. So sending the car forward. So we've just got the tummy muscles sending the air. So everything in the tummy is coming up underneath the diaphragm, and then you're going to get a nice constant flow of air, which is what we're after. So we're now going to put in some little voiced fricatives. So there are some lovely exercises from accent method breathing, which is used, they're used in voice clinics around the world, I think, but particularly in the UK and on the continent. So we use unvoiced sounds of sh, s, f, and then we gradually move the sh to a j, the s to a z, the f to a v, and the th, we can do a th as well, to a v. So we're just going to do a v. Your turn. Good, my turn. Your turn. Good, my turn. Great. And just for a moment, if we do a bit of sort of negative practice, then we can learn an awful lot. So if we think back to the tight jaw, if we want to just do a few of those sounds, we're not going to hurt ourselves, but we're just going to tighten the jaw and see how that feels. So if I do a your turn. And then a I'm really gripping here. And then let's let go again. And if you put your hands here, It's a great way for loosening up a bit more. Often we think the jaw's released and it's actually holding. I've got a great app. I just want to show you. It's called Essential Anatomy 5. Didn't ask whether I'm allowed to advertise. I don't have shares in it, by the way. But it is very useful because some of us are very visual, and it's quite useful. If I don't know whether you can see that little muscle there, pterygoid. Do you see? Are you able to see, Jamie? Yeah, okay. So it's actually there. And when we're singing in just a moment, in fact, we will start off now. And we can keep the thumbs just there. Again, don't hurt yourself, but they're just there. And that's going to help release that muscle and then help release the masseter muscles. So what you need to do is choose an octave that suits you. So I'm just going to do a very gentle. So just a very gentle little arc over a fifth. Here we go. And then release your tummies. Next one. Good. Then release your tummies and think released here. Good. Okay. So one of the exercises I encourage people to use for warming up, lip trills, rolled R's. There's a wood pigeon one, which is puffy cheeks with a rolled R inside. Do you want to try that? And then there's the raspberry, which is sticking the tongue right out like a little kid, which is quite good as well. And then we've got the lip trills. Great. And so most people can do one of the four. They're totally interchangeable and they're very useful. Some people can't do any of them, and that's fine. So please don't panic if there's something you think, oh, can't do that, because then you can just use vowels. But what we could do, I think we'll do for a moment, is if you dig your fingers in very low down, just above the pubic bone, and do a little cough for me. Can you feel that little bulking out of the muscles right down there? That's the bottom of your support muscles. So you've got transverse abdominis, you've got the inner and outer obliques, and we don't have the naughty rectus abdominis six-pack because you're below that. So if your back is all right, if we go into a monkey, half monkey position, so just tip forward, dig your fingers in, and we're going to then go sort of revving up. Make sure your chins aren't lifted, noses pointing towards the carpet or the floor. Can we just do a sort of firework revving up? Great. And some more of that. With anything like this, if you want to come back and look at me, anything like this, we want to check that we're not lifting our chins. If we lift our chins, we are going to strain ourselves, and our poor larynx, our voice box, is going to go on a journey that we don't want because it's not going to feel comfy. We want the larynx to feel nice and free. It needs to be allowed to move, and it will go up and it will go down, and when we're turning our heads, of course, because it's a valve that's designed to keep us alive. So it's designed to close and also to be a bit free and open. And the larynx is allowed to move a little bit, but we don't want to be singing like that because you can hear how my voice sounds a bit strange. So if I were to sing like that, it would be a bit miserable. So we're now going to do a little exercise like this. Let's try that. So that's basically whizzing up a ninth and down. Now, I played a scale on the piano, but you can just think of about a little stretch of the vocal folds and a release. Here we go. So if you're all standing up, kangaroo tails in place, shoulders nice and relaxed and down. So a lot of space between the bottom of the ear and the shoulder. Another reminder for freeing the jaw. If you think when you're wearing a mask, a face mask, which we're all going to have to wear sometimes, everything obscured by the face mask wants to be soft. And in fact, when you're walking around, public transport, face masks, you can practice having a dopey jaw like that. Nobody will know. You might feel a bit dopey, but it's a great way to practice having a really relaxed jaw. So we're going to do, again, choose the octave for you, as low as is comfortable. Your turn. Good, next one. And release your tummies when you breathe in. Good, keep the back of the neck nice and free. Fabulous, release your tummies, off you go. You can tell I'm not a pianist here. And release your tummies, let the air just drop in. And release, and off we go again. And release the tummy. And release again, jaw relaxed. Let the jaw feel soft and actually quite heavy when you breathe in. And what we're going to do is we're going to go on and on and on. When you come to the top of your comfortable area, then just drop an octave. So we sort of give the people who are supersonic and can go really high, give them a chance to warm up the tops of their voices, but nobody is to strain. If you find you've got those extra few notes at the top, women in whistle register, great. That's a nice added bonus. If you haven't, don't worry at all. So here we go on. 1, 2. And the next one. And release your tummy as you breathe, and off we go. Drop an octave if you need to, and off we go, with the jaws beautifully released. Pop your hands on the side of your mouth if that helps, because it may well. Okay, so as we go high, if you're not doing that, and none of the great team in front of me is lifting their chin, but there is a chance you might be coming forward, which is a sort of subconscious way of lengthening the vocal tract. We can do that a better way by keeping that lovely alignment. So keep thinking kangaroo tail and beautifully aligned so that the chin isn't going that way, but if anything, tucking in a little bit. So we're just going to go on about 3 more. Here we go. And release the tummy, another one. And the last one. Good, and then a bit of chewing again. Okay, so we've looked at alignment, we've looked at low breathing, releasing the jaw, releasing the tongue. There are plenty more things you can do to warm up, but I'm just going to head back to Jamie a moment to see if he would like to head on to something else.
This has been fantastic, Veronica. Thank you. And
Okay,
I think
good.
what this really highlights is actually there's so many different ways we can approach warming up our voice. And what I really loved is actually we've talked a lot already about using imagery, and I think this kangaroo image is potentially another one of those quite helpful ones that we've all heard about the technical stuff, and it's really great to know all of this detail and know how it works. But I'm really interested that you gave us all of that technical stuff and then an image to help us get there.
Yeah. Well, we all work in different ways. You know, a lot of people like to see pictures, so I try and sort of back up what I'm doing in a variety of ways. Some people are very oral, some people just want, you know, what's happening here, but most people need more than this muscle does that. And imagery, provided it's based on good physiological sense, is usually helpful. So I tend not to say sort of think of a pink rose and let's sing a pink rose, because actually that might work when you've got your teacher in front of you and I don't know, you're inspired by whatever, but it's difficult to recreate it on another occasion. So I like to sort of find something. Kangaroo tail will always work for you because it's so ridiculously stupid and wacky and fun, and you can just sort yourself out in a few seconds. So thank you, Ron Morris, for that.
It's really useful. Thank you so much, Veronica. Now, a few people have been asking in the chat, what was that app called?
Yeah. And it was a physiotherapist who showed me this. It's called Essential Anatomy 5.
Great.
It is one I had to pay. When I got it, it was about 20 quid, which is quite a lot. But to be honest, it's been really invaluable.
Great. So those of you that really love getting into the nitty-gritty detail, there you are. That's a good app for you to go and have a play with. Now, we've of course, we've spent a really good time warming up, and I as a singer really appreciate actually being able to take a bit of time to warm up. If we are if we are a bit more strapped for time, what are your main what are the things we absolutely should be doing if we only have 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes max to do a little warm up? What should we be doing and what should we be thinking of?
Absolutely. And you can warm up in 5 minutes. You really can. And actually, if you haven't sung for more than 2 hours, then you need to do another warm up. So I would say, first of all, look at where your body is holding tension from the day and just do what you need to do. Like there's some very experienced yoga people who will do their own yoga session for them and what they need. So it's a little bit like that. So you're learning to listen to your body. If the breathing's high and everything's held, you've had some difficult meetings, then you want everything to get relaxed and down. So I would look at the tension, maybe tighten a little bit more and then let go, because sometimes we're in a stew and we don't know what's tense and what isn't. Then a few stretches, sort of back of the neck, the ear to the shoulder, that sort of thing, things that you can comfortably do, head gliding over one shoulder and then the other, again, very slowly. I would then definitely do some jaw tongue work, a little bit of that. Get the breathing going. I like to get the breathing going before one's singing rather than plunge into singing, because you can often turn what might feel like a rubbish singing day into a perfectly respectable one just by gently listening to your body and getting the breath going first. So breathing out on a and then at the end of that breath, rather than holding, letting go, letting the air just naturally drop in. That's what we want, to sort of drop in breath, and then breathing out on a and then I like to get people to sort of see if they will slide over a fifth, which is my way of linking all those exercises from the breathing breath work into the singing. So the I think on one NYC course I became known as Veronica. Am I right, Jamie? I think possibly.
It does ring a bell.
Okay. And then you also want to get the breath flowing and give your little vocal folds a stretch and a release. So you want to go through your pitch range. I would start from your speaking voice area, and we want to generally speak in chest voice. That's what the speech therapists tell us is most healthy. So you've got a larynx that's not tilted and the vocal folds nice and comfortably thick. And then take the little slides up. So we were doing the that sort of thing, going as high as you can or want to, or the rolled R's, and then your that sort of thing. You can do other exercise, any sort of pattern note. And then going into vowels, I would then sort of run through the vowel checklist. And I'm guessing that you've got different vowel exercises yourself, or you can just take one note, mid-range, and run through the vowels, maybe E, A, R, or U, or A, A, E, a sort of resetting, retuning the vowels, if you like. And a general rule of thumb for me is to go for the Italian vowels rather than the dark English ones with a very low flat tongue, which tends to make a darker sound. So we want, if possible, to allow the tongue to be very light. I encourage my students to think it's got helium in it, like one of those birthday helium balloons, and it's just going to sort of float up. And then we could do a just the A-R-A-E, almost as if it's just a rocking movement. The-A-R-A-E, and then you can add the-A-R or U or A-A-E. Because it's quite a tangle to go through all of them immediately, let's just take the TH first is quite useful because it helps the tongue find a new, lighter, higher place. The-A-R-A-E. Here we go. This is A flat, so choose your A flat, people. Here we go, just ready, and C, A, R, A, E. And we're trying to do that without getting the jaw involved. So actually the tongue is having a little gentle wriggle through those vowels. Let's try again. And then coming back. Some people go into a smiley face. That actually doesn't help us because it tightens us here. So let's just do that once more with the fingers on the side of the mouth and reminding us that these big, the masseter muscles here can be very soft. Let's go back here. Just a C-A-R-A-E, just very gently. And good. So you can play with that idea. Then I like to then take perhaps a passage from something you're going to be singing. So if we look at your Benedictus, which I think Jamie was going to go to in a moment. So if we just choose this beautiful... Why don't we choose that? And let's do it with lip trills, or rolled R's, or the wood pigeon, which is the frrr, or the raspberry, which is the tongue out. So now, would you like to conduct people, Jamie? Is this a better way of doing it?
I think, why not? Or... Let's take this phrase and we can do it in a call and response kind of style, maybe with the piano. Yeah. I think that'll be good to follow.
So if I play, so we've got just before. And then you've got one and off you go with lip trills. And let's all do it together. Let's just write. Can you pop your fingers just on the side of your faces? Because I think there are quite a lot of jaws that are a little bit tense. And remember, we do want the breath to flow. It's a rare singer in my book who is driving the air through. I don't encounter many people doing that. It's possible. But what I encounter is more likely to find people hanging on to the air and getting tight. So if we can think of a nice flow. Ready? 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Let's do that again. 1. Good. And then you can take it up in steps or down in steps. I had thought of something to tell you, and it has gone out of my head. I know, yep. So through this phrase, again, a lot of these ideas, my lovely friend Dinah Harris, who's a wonderful colleague at Royal College, she says singing teachers always steal from each other, and we do. You get a good idea. So this is Rosa Mannion's, another wonderful teacher, her magic finger. So if we do that just again with the lip trills, and while you're singing, this is to just remind you to use the breath to the end of the phrase. And the idea is you don't want to be singing, holding your hand back here. You're just gently pointing through the phrase. I think a lot of you might find this helpful, particularly in this particular movement. Ready? Let's see. Yeah, I think we'll just, I'm just wondering whether to start a little bit lower. Let's start down here and then we'll notch it up. So we're making a little exercise for ourselves.
So this is to our lip trills still.
All the rolled R's. Yep, here we go. Ready? 3, 4, 1. Okay, sorry, I'm messing up on the piano. I can't think and play. Okay, so we'll now go. Here we go. 3, 4, 1. Okay, just notice if it feels easier doing that. Can we now put the text in? So now I've asked you to point as you're singing. I also suggested you put your hands here. We could do with another pair of hands. So let's do, unless you're holding the music, in which case bad luck, I don't know what you're going to do. Fingers either side of the mouth, pointing. We want to have a dopey face. Eyes really intelligent and bright, as of course they are, but we want to be lovely, beautifully dopey, everything that's obscured by the face mask. Okay, 3, 4, 1. Okay, good. Can we now put the text in? Benedictus, very, very relaxed. Perhaps keep your fingers here if you feel you're likely to go into a smile. I think, Mike, I could see you're doing beautifully, I think, but it looks like your mouth is wanting to go that way. Okay? Again, often we're told to look happy or put it in the cheekbones. For me, that's not always so helpful, because it can work for some people, of course, but quite often it can make people tense. So here we go. So we're going to put the text, Benedictus, 3, 4, 1. Lovely. Let's go up a step. Ooh, oh dear. I wasn't expecting to be doing this, Jamie. And it's very strange because I can't hear you, so I'm just imagining your wonderful
It's
voices.
great, thank you. This is really helpful. And what I love is that from my time at Conservatoire, and I'm sure you'd agree that lots of your students do this,
man, weren't you?
I was Royal Academy, is actually, if you walk past any rehearsal room, this feels often very silly doing physical movements like this, but it for me it serves two things. It reminds me that I have a direction with my singing, but it also
Absolutely.
it just draws a little bit of attention to my physical position, because it's very easy if I stay completely stock still to allow a bit of tension to creep into my shoulders, whereas actually doing a movement or shaping a phrase with one hand I find really helpful. It reminds me to keep that freedom and release that tension. Really helpful. Sorry, we were about to start with the word.
No, great. Also, it's a rare person, particularly you've all bothered to join this. It's a very rare person who is doing this and doesn't care hugely and isn't wanting to give everything and put everything into it. So again, keeping a little bit of movement going. I think I did one of your little 10-second singing sessions, and I think I was talking about wriggling knees. It seems silly, but it's just to keep you from tightening up, from trying too hard. It's very strange this, in your professional lives. I know you're having to concentrate extra hard in meetings and multitask, and goodness, those of you who are trying to do your own work and homeschool. I mean, I don't know how you're doing that. So it's, a massive time of trying too hard. So this, you can just let yourselves relax a little bit and you will find your singing benefits from it. So we're going up in steps with the Benedictus. 3, 4, 1. Good. And then 2, 3, 4, 1. Here we go. I so wish I could hear you. We're going to do another one. 3, 4, 1.
Benedictus.
Oh, Jamie, you have a beautiful voice.
I'll unmic myself for once.
And then let's go back to our D major. Here we go. 3, 4, 1. Excellent. So let's go on and see what else. So this movement particularly needs to be very legato. Legato is an Italian word you probably all know, meaning smooth. And a lot of good singing is based on lovely, smooth legato lines. And this finger pointing, that will help you find a legato. We also want nice, clear articulation. And if the jaw and tongue are free, then that's going to help you. Let's just go on a little bit.
I wonder, Veronica, I'm conscious of time, unfortunately,
Yes,
so I'd love to get some questions. We've actually got 15 minutes. We might take a couple extra if you'd be willing to stay.
Yeah.
I think what's really great with that exercise is isolating I would say that's probably the most challenging part of the Benedictus, is the length of line and the width of that phrase in the from high to low. And I think what's really helpful is what we can take away from this is that we can take a section and sing it lower while we practice it, and make sure that we're not forcing anything. You used the words earlier, forcing air, and I think this idea is a really useful one, because at no point should we feel like we are creating too much pressure or forcing anything or driving. In the same way, when you put your foot down on an accelerator of a car, it shouldn't feel like you're like it's taking all the effort in the world. Ideally, you just want to put your foot down and glide. It's that sort of...
Yeah, absolutely. So it's airflow rather than pressure, and no holding. Yeah, absolutely agree with that, Jamie.
I wonder if we could talk a little bit about the chorale, because obviously this one is a very, very slow piece, and there's a number of challenges. I wondered what you feel the sort of biggest challenge of this would be, and whether there's another little section we could isolate for this.
Yes. Let me just look through. It's so beautiful, isn't it? I wonder, sort of the people in front of me, are you encountering the armed man for the first time? Who's experiencing it for the... No, lots of heads shaking. So, okay, hands down. Who knows it very well? Who's done it before? Just a couple of you.
Elizabeth, great. I'd love to know, in fact, Veronica, while you find the score and find a part to work on. Lena, you said you didn't know it particularly well. Is that right? Is there a particular bit you find particularly hard in this? It doesn't have to be the chorale, but...
No, it's I'm a first soprano normally, and I just couldn't get the high notes with Benedictus, and it was extremely disappointing for me, because I've never failed to hit high notes. Sing in a community choir, but for some reason with Benedictus, when I did hit them, I could only hit them when I wasn't in front of the camera, but when I was in front of that phone camera, I was tensing up and I just couldn't overcome it. And yes, I sang the alto bit and it's fine, but I don't think I'm ever going to forgive myself.
Oh, that's such a shame. And of course you answered immediately with, you knew what you'd done, you tensed up. Would it help to go back to that, Jamie, and just look at that, or shall we look at this, that sort of phrase?
Why don't we if we could isolate a phrase that we could all sing, that maybe is in the upper range for all of us. Because I think Lena, that's absolutely a difficulty, and I completely empathise with that, and I'm sure lots of us have thought that in the process of recording. I know I certainly have, and it's my job. So I think it's something we can all work on. But I wonder, Veronica, is that something we can then think about the preparatory breath for a phrase? Is there something we could do on that?
Absolutely. So I said right at the beginning, we don't want to sing on a big yawn, and in fact, we're not going to sing, but if you put your fingers just on your throats there and do a big yawn as if you're then going to sing, and somebody said, hey, take a yawn, you can feel that, sort of, you've had a long day. There's a lift, there's a squeeze, and then this is my model larynx, tongue attached there. It's almost like a cafetiere with the back of the tongue pressing the larynx down. So we don't want to do that. However, you might like this, which is a pre-yawn. It's a real shame it's got yawn in the word, because I spent years not talking about the pre-yawn because I thought it would make people sing on a yawn, and that would really mess with their higher notes. So the pre-yawn, I wish it had some other name. Perhaps we could think of it, something like kangaroo. Anyway, if you put your fingers on your throat and just the pre-yawn, can you feel the difference? It's very subtle. There is a little lowering of the larynx, but if you do it again and pop your thumb just there so you can feel the base of the tongue, if you do that for the full yawn, we'll do the full yawn now, you can feel it gets absolutely rigid like a board. That's going to be the kiss of death to our singing. However, if we do the pre-yawn, so fingers there just so that you can feel what's happening, thumb there, just sort of in the little V under your chin, and then a pre-yawn. That's still soft. Could you all feel that? I don't actually want you lifting your chins, because that will So Jackie, I think you're lifting your chin a little bit. Keep comfortable. So what the pre-yawn does, it lets the soft palate lift. It sort of opens out, if you like, the back of the mouth, and it allows the larynx to just gently release down. So if we just take, I need to get back into my iPad, those first 2 bars of God shall wipe away the tears. Yes, God shall wipe away all tears even. So we'll just take it, and I'll just play it to you so that you can familiarise yourself with it. And you can either choose to sing to the text, or you can use the lip trills rolled R's, but we've got... And we will go back to the G and finish there. Here we go. Ready, and... I must apologise to Carl Jenkins if he's anywhere around, because I'm putting in all sorts of different notes. Okay, so 2 things we can do to make that feel a little bit easier. You've got your kangaroo tails. You can think this time of the pre-yawn, which just helps us prepare the breath. Is this something you use, Jamie, or not?
It is, yeah, it is.
So
Not nearly enough, I must admit,
right,
but I do.
But it's, again, as I said, we can overdo it, it can turn into a yawn, and then it's really no help at all. So we're just looking at that very subtle, gentle. So here we go. If I do 3, 4, and then we start singing. So on the 4, that pre-yawn, which is setting you up, helping to get you centered, and off we go. 3, 4. Okay, did anybody here in front of me find that helpful or not? Okay.
Very helpful, thank you.
Good, good.
I was singing the tenor line, but nevertheless.
Good, great. Lovely.
What sort of physical sensations is anyone noticing? Someone who hasn't spoken yet, what kind of things have you noticed with these exercises that you maybe haven't before? Or that you've just enjoyed noticing, perhaps?
I think I'm far more relaxed.
Great.
Far more relaxed, yeah.
I see lots of you nodding
Good.
as well. That's great.
I'm
really
delighted to hear that. I've got a little tip to help you with your higher notes, because first sopranos, you're going up to a G here. Where are the first sopranos? Right, great. At least 3 of you, but you can all try it if you like. So we've got the low support we've been talking about. Support is a funny word because it can be bandied around and mean different things to different people, and it can, if it works for the singer and you know specifically what is meant by that, and it doesn't get you tight, that's great. But I tend to think of sort of connection of body, voice to the body. So I talk about connection a lot, but I'm quite specific with the people I work with so that we understand each other. And I also need to know what they have learnt and understood by words like support in the past, so that there's a meeting ground. But we're looking at going right back to earlier in the session, when we had the hand on the tummy and the low tummy muscles as low down as possible, coming inwards gently in and slightly upwards towards the spine, a bit like, you know, those fairground swing boats. I used to love those. Okay, so if you think of the tummy going in and up and then releasing, so we're not going down and out again like the real swing boat. It's just that feeling, just very gently in and up. Okay, for people who are very, very big, if this is the spine and this is the front wall of the tummy, you might just travel the tummy in, and it could go in throughout a phrase, you know, because there's plenty of space or room, distance to travel. A lot of people, if they're slimmer, they can get there too, you know, the tummy can get in too quickly. So instead, think inwards and slightly upwards. So even a beanpole person can still get, you know, it won't be a big movement, but they can still get a little movement that's going to be helpful. So what we can add is a sort of zip up support. So before you go to the G, if I just show you here on me, solar plexus area, you can do a zip and a little very gentle tuck under. You know, tuck under is almost too strong. Just a little tiny folding under there, which again, it's like putting your finger on the hose pipe and changing the flow of the water. If you were tempted when you were younger to squirt somebody, no, never. So let's just try this with the zip. And just if it doesn't work for you, then leave it, because this is potentially something that could make you tight. And I really don't want that. So let's have everybody standing. And here's your phrase again. Good. And I will just count you in, and you're going to do your pre-yawn and start off with your low support and then add your zip just before you get to the G. 2, 3, 4. Okay, should we just try that once more so that you get a sense of whether you understand it, whether it's working for you or not? So the several things, it's the understanding it, it's synchronizing the zip feeling, that little tuck under at the right moment, and it needs to be before you get to your highest note of the phrase. And then it's the choice, is this working for me? Is it helping or is it not helping? And if you use that as an idea between this rehearsal and your next rehearsal, then you'll begin to explore it and get a feel for it. And it might be something you explore again another time if you like it. And if you feel it's not helping you, then please leave it alone. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. Now, sadly, I can't hear you, but can you indicate whether it was useful or not? And I won't be offended if it wasn't. Okay, so Mike is a definite no. Mike, please don't ever do that in your life again.
Veronica.
Looks like it was a good one.
I seem to be using it spontaneously anyway to get to those notes.
Is that, who's saying that? Is that Lena?
Lena. Yes,
Great,
yes,
great, Lena.
correct.
Excellent. Yeah. So perhaps you've been taught that somewhere along the line, or perhaps you've just learnt it.
I worked
Great.
it out. Thank you.
Excellent. Lovely. Then trust it.
I shall.
Yeah. And I
Thanks.
think, and then sort of if you're coming to another passage that you're recording for the choir another time, that is something that might help you. If it's just and I was intrigued because you said normally you can start on a top G, no problem, never had any problem, and it's that little green light in front of you.
Cheers.
Yes, okay. So in that case, then this is a trick. This isn't based on science, and so I'm going against myself a bit here. But what you could do is imagine that the note has already started. In fact, you could imagine that your green light is your friendly note at the pitch, and it's just coming towards you, and you just take your gentle breath, and it's there.
I'll try.
And I think that will then perhaps stop you tightening up in anticipation. Yeah,
Right.
perhaps we should all think of the little green light as our friend.
Right. Veronica, this is all fabulously helpful. Thank you. And I know lots of you have submitted a few questions already, but I've been watching them as I go, and we've answered most of them. However, Veronica, we are at 8 o'clock. Would you be happy to take maybe 3 rapid fire questions just to close off?
Yep,
now, I think
most
the one
definitely.
I really love the most, and I think this would be just a really great exercise for everybody, because we've talked a little bit about range, is Georgina was your question. Georgina, you are here, aren't you? Can I see you? Georgina, you are. Georgina, you had a question about different ranges, if you'd like to ask that.
Yes, I did. As I'm getting older, I'm finding it more difficult to change from what I would say is my lower voice to the head voice. Are there any exercises or anything I can do to assist that?
Yes, so it's rather cruelly, people talk about sort of if you don't use it, you lose it. So everybody, we all and I find it difficult to find the time myself, need to try and do a little bit of practice, sort of keep those muscles working and the little stretch feeling. So what I'm guessing is that certain muscles have got quite tight. Our jaws tend to get so tight, and the muscles around here will probably tighten up sort of gradually with just life. So anything you can do to keep nice and soft around here. The lip trills, Georgina, were you somebody who could do lip trills comfortably?
Yeah, but I'm finding that the majority of times when I sing, say, for example, in church, everything is at the really low register. And then when you move into something like the Armed Man or something a little bit more challenging, as an alto, you do have a higher range to get to.
Yep.
And that's where I'm having the little difficulty.
Okay, so look, what I would suggest then is in your warm-up, I thought of several things. You could do that sort of thing, and then take it a little bit higher, a little bit higher. You know, if one's just working with one tessitura, that's the word for where the piece of music sits. And if you've been doing some low stuff in choir as an alto for a long time, then your voice will get very comfortable down. Like, oh yeah, I think I like that. I think I'm going to stay there. And it will forget that it's got all that bit that's possible as well. So you just have to gently remind it. So, and I mean gently, not bully it, but don't suddenly expect to get to a G because you used to sing a G very comfortably, and or whatever note, but actually use little musical exercises, and probably from the Armed Man, as Jamie was saying, in different keys, you know, start lower, work up, sometimes go higher than the real thing. But it's keeping the airflow going, keeping the alignment, as we've been talking about, and maybe that zip-up support, I don't know whether it worked for you, but you could try that.
Great,
I
thank
didn't
you.
because it was too high.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
He said, I didn't when you did it because it was way too high for me.
Okay. The other thing is, you know, the tongue is likely to be freer lower down, and as we get higher, it's quite likely that there will become a point in your voice where you find it might just suddenly get difficult, and often the tongue has just tightened up. So doing some singing with some chewing, just sort of, and actually when you're practicing you can put the text and chew the text, you know, which you won't want to do when you're filmed, of course you won't, but it can be very useful in rehearsal.
All right,
Great,
thank you.
Veronica,
Okay.
thank you so much.
That's okay.
And what I'd love to say actually about this is it's very easy to think of specific questions for technique like this. And I think what is so obvious to me listening to this, but something we perhaps take a little bit for granted, is that all of these exercises can be applied in so many different scenarios. So if you are looking at trying to work on your upper or lower range, try these exercises. And as long as you feel it's comfortable in your voice, they can be so helpful. I'm going to try and do 2 questions, and let's see if we can keep them super, super rapid fire. Where was it? Natalie, you had a good question about voice maintenance. Are you here? I need to keep checking who's here and who isn't.
Yes.
Yes, Natalie, hello.
Hi.
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 It's a bit similar to Georgina's, I think. Just do you have any good tips for older singers to maintain their voice?
Yeah, it's going to be the gentle, the sort of the normal healthy type things, you know, sort of all the general health. You know, we're all told to look after our weight, keep as fit and healthy as we can, and supple. So yoga, I mean, I talk about yoga a lot, and to be honest, I don't do a lot of it myself. So this is, you know, sort of, this is definitely not a question of follow your teacher. But you know, making sure the body is supple so that you've got a supple instrument to work with, and just working gently with it. So I think it is the same thing. So making sure that, I mean, as we get older, you know, our voices may well get lower. Not everybody, but a lot of us do find our voices get lower, and there might be a case sometimes to think, okay, so I'm not a soprano 1 anymore, I'm going to enjoy soprano 2, rather than you know, sort of still making myself miserable trying to get those notes that used to fly out, because that does tend to happen. You know, the vocal folds do get, you know, sort of a bit thicker, and the range does sometimes, you know, sort of get reduced a little, sometimes a lot. Sometimes it doesn't though. So, and you look nice and young. I think keep it going. You look very young to me. You know, I think sort of be positive and just make sure you don't bully your voice. You know, it is part of you. You know, who was it who said, you know, the relationship with you is the most important relationship you have. And actually, and if you think about it, it actually is true. But the relationship with you and your voice, you know, be nice to your voice. Encourage yourself when you're singing. You know, don't sort of beat yourself up. Damn it, I've got to get this in 5 minutes. You know, just take it gently and make sure you're doing the thorough warming up. Warming down is also good. You know, and that's just taking the range you've been singing in, just taking it back down into your speaking pitch range. And also we can look at our speaking voices as well. You know, again, if we're stressed, we'll be probably holding on at times and not using airflow. So we can just think, is our voice smooth? There are some beautiful, free, helpful leaflets from the British Voice Association. There's a wonderful American one as well, and I can't remember the name of it. British Voice Association, I think it's .org. If you go on their website, they've got the most lovely, this isn't a time to go into medical stuff, but a lot of singers have reflux. And again, once that's treated, again, it makes our singing more comfortable. And there's such a thing as silent reflux, and we don't know we've got it, but you get it treated or you treat it yourself and suddenly get more comfortable. So these leaflets, free downloads about all sorts of things, a lot of, you know, really good free resource for you.
Fantastic, thank you. This is
okay.
Every answer is a mine of information. So those of you watching on YouTube, do go back and have a rewatch, because I have no doubt, I think certainly every possible question I could think of has been answered today. I think the only thing, Veronica, I would add is water.
Water,
and
yes,
we all too easily forget actually how important water. Oh, good. In fact, stay-at-home choir members, could you all just swig from your water bottle then, so I can see it all on screen? Fabulous.
Hydrate, yeah.
Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, that is time for our first, I hope you'll be really exciting vocal forum with Veronica Veysey Campbell. I've certainly enjoyed it, and it's been a wonderful refresher for certain ideas of mine that I perhaps haven't given enough thought to recently. So please, those of you in the session, please join me with the usual stay-at-home choir method of thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'd like
Veronica, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you. Those of you that are interested in this kind of thing, Veronica is a wonderful teacher. She has wonderful resources on her website. We'll make sure we've shared all of that. Veronica, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And you're doing the most wonderful thing with this gorgeous choir. And, you know, sort of everybody, I've loved the people in front of me. So thank you for entering into this so positively. It's been great to see smiley faces and receptive and going, you know, trying everything. So continue to enjoy your armed man, and I'll look forward to hearing the results. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much, stay-at-home choir members, for joining us in our little forum. Those of you that made it. In the meantime, see you at the next rehearsal on Saturday. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So much. Thank you.